be surprised at how little they do with email, even if they're spending like a shitload of money on paid traffic.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Uncensored Direct Marketing. Today, I have Nabeel Azeez. He is the owner of Dropkick Copy. He is a master copywriter and has written for pretty much every niche under the sun. So Nabeel has a ton of experience writing copy for a lot of different niches in direct response and e-commerce. And today, we're going to talk about, his transition into copy, things that he's doing. Nabeel also has a very interesting mastermind that we're going to talk about. And most interestingly, and something that I get a lot of is, copywriters from places outside of the US that are writing US copy. So Nabeel is going to give us his insights on that and, how business works outside of the US when you're working with Americans. So thank you so much, Nabeel, for joining us. And obviously I gave a very quick intro, so I'm hoping that you can tell us a little bit more about your company and, your copy and what you're doing with your mastermind.
Thanks for having me, Maria. I've been writing copy for, I think, the past 7 years now. I think like 5 of them have been full-time. And I run a little boutique copywriting studio with my brother. Most of our clients, pretty much all of our clients are sort of like in the internet marketing space, like online business, coaching, consulting, agency types. We have had, clients in the SaaS space, in the real estate investing space, that kind of thing. And mostly what we do for them are, direct response type stuff. And it would be like, mostly email marketing, like funnel copy, that kind of thing. Okay. Not that much long form stuff, even though we do write some long form sales pages from time to time. But that's the business. We haven't really found like a niche of any sort. But yeah, that's the agency side of things. And then I have a mastermind, a training program / a membership community for copywriters, specifically from the global South. So that's how I positioned it. And I also have a newsletter / media company that is more like a content type business for Muslim men, called Muslim Man. And then the membership community is called Copy Skills.
Okay. Wow. So you got a lot going on there, Nabeel. You're a busy guy. You've mentioned a couple of things, so I'm just going to dive in, on a hot topic that, we get a lot of questions of, like Direct PayNet. We get people merchant accounts, right? So we get to see a lot of different offers, different copies. I work with a lot of different departments. And the one thing that we get a lot of is like non-US residents that, want to get, for example, a merchant account in the US for their offer and stuff like that. And that's always a big challenge, right? It's on the banking side, without getting into the logistics of it. Getting a merchant account in the US, if you're not American, it's a little bit tough. There's a lot of hoops you have to go through. So I'm just hoping that you can tie in, like, maybe a little bit of your background. You told me earlier that you're from Sri Lanka, born and raised. So obviously your English is spot on. And you mentioned that, it's very common in Sri Lanka for people to have English as their first language. But I'm curious how did you break in to the US market being a non-American, right? Like, was it a little bit of a play on rates? Like you were charging less at the beginning to kind of get in, or what kind of proof can you give somebody that's American, that's creating an offer, that needs copy to show them that you're going to do just as good, if not better, than an American?
That's an interesting question, actually, because it's been so long. I don't even remember how I ended up with all of these Americans, because all of my clients are American. I only have one client from the UAE where I live. And that's a friend of mine. We've been working together for a long time, but everybody else
American.
is American. No, he's Indian. But yeah, exactly. So that's I don't even remember. I think it's because, and this is if I was just starting out, or to give advice to a copywriter just starting out, it's like the wrong advice to give. But I started out with content marketing because I had a full-time job. And I was doing copywriting on the side. So I didn't have to, I didn't need the clients. Okay. And I didn't need to charge lowball rates to get the clients so that I can get into this full-time copywriting thing. It was only after I quit my 9 to 5 that I went into copywriting full time. And even then I didn't do it the right way. I just kept producing content.
Okay.
And then, you keep posting on Facebook every day, every other day or whatever. And then you keep adding friends like from Facebook groups and stuff. And then most of them are American. And then like suddenly one day, like, you get an inbound inquiry and then you end up with like your first client. So like, I'm like the worst person to come to for client acquisition advice because there was no method to me getting clients.
Okay.
And by now, like it's been so long that, most of the clients come in through referrals and word of mouth anyways.
Yeah.
But in my case, it was the way that I could get them to trust me that I can actually write for them is, because they've seen me publishing content. I've been, I've had an email list for like 7+ years. And I've been emailing that list daily for like 7+ years. So they can see my body of work. And like, if I tell them I'm Sri Lankan, they think it's like weird because I talk like in my writing is very American. Okay. And there's no hint of like, you can't tell that I'm not from America.
Do you watch a lot of American? Sorry to cut you off. I'm just curious. Do you like, how does one who you mentioned earlier, like we were talking before, that, you're born and raised in Sri Lanka, you lived in the US for just a couple of years. And then since then you've been living in Dubai. So how does somebody, because that is a disconnect actually that I have that you just mentioned, is sometimes the pop culture side of things is something that I find non-American writers don't get, like they don't understand maybe the nuances of like making a joke that's in reference to like a Friends episode or like something like that. So do you watch a lot of American TV and that's how you're able to kind of stay in tune with that? Or like, what's your trick with that?
That definitely helps. So like, I mean, I was raised on like American kind of TV. I remember, we used to watch Knight Rider growing up or the Highlander TV series or whatever. I remember like Star Trek Next Generation, that would be on TV. And yes, I do consume a lot of like US media. But it's just like, it's like, I've always sort of written like this. And there was no like point where I was sounding like a non-US person, like, or non-US copywriter, and suddenly I figured out a way how to sound like a US based copywriter or somebody who speaks native US English. Okay. What I found is that, and it doesn't really matter now because not like, even if you sound like you're from Nigeria when you write English, you can just put that into ChatGPT or AI. We're probably going to talk about AI in a second, but you can get AI to like copy edit your copy and give you back something that sounds like it's written by a native American English speaker. I did that for like an Australian piece of copy as well. Like, hey, could you rewrite this? Like I get the email back, right? And then I say, okay, now can you rewrite this to sound like an Australian was writing it and include Australian idiom and slang? And I even posted it on my Facebook. Hey, I asked ChatGPT to write me an email in Australian. What do you guys think? And obviously it was like totally over the top with like, it's like no Australian would speak that way. Okay. But then I could take out the too much stuff and like leave just a hint of Australian in it. So it sounds like an Australian wrote it, even though I don't speak Australian English. Yeah. And that is like a really, really big equalizer for like ESL speakers, so they speak English as a second language. And it used to be that if your English wasn't that great in terms of like not coming off as a native, you would have to probably get somebody to copy edit your work or proofread your work, and you'd have to hire somebody to do that for you. But now it's just you put it into ChatGPT and it's going to come back as if Maria wrote it.
That's crazy. I mean, yeah, we're obviously with copy with copy, AI is always a hot topic, and like people thinking they're getting replaced and so forth. And I've already kind of stated my stance on that, is like, you can only get replaced if you have no skill. You know what I mean? If you have no skill, then obviously if you've just been writing crappy ass copy and charging like, $30 on Fiverr for like 1,000 words, then yeah, obviously you're going to be replaced. I mean, that's kind of a given, but you would have been replaced anyway by somebody who's more talented, or whatever the case is. Now, the interesting thing that you said is, there is a world outside of the US. So I find for a lot of English as a second language, or non-native US English speakers, there are other markets. You said Australia, there's the UK. There, you can find yourself a little niche in the different English speaking countries that also pay just as well as the US, and then use ChatGPT to kind of get yourself up there in terms of like sounding like that specific culture. Because, when we speak English, as we were talking earlier, you can be speaking English in the UK and have a very different northern, British English to southern British English. So really knowing your market and so forth. So do you find that ChatGPT is simple in terms of using for this type of thing? Like because the thing is, when I read a lot about ChatGPT, and I use it just for basic stuff, I have writers, so I don't use it as much. They use it more, but it sounds like the prompts have to be like almost like a paragraph in order to get what you're looking for, which seems cumbersome to me. But I'm just curious, like, what is the prompting mechanism that you use, or how do you get ChatGPT to work the way you want it to work?
Yeah, there's those super prompts that people use that are like sometimes 2,000 words long. But in order to do this, it doesn't require that complicated prompting style. You just say, if I give you could, it's all sort of like a conversation. It's like, hey, can I give you this piece of copy, and then you make it sound like an American wrote it, and ChatGPT is going to say yeah, and so you copy paste the copy, and then you can give it additional instructions like, please write with a Flesch Kincaid score of 3, or at a third grade school level, and include American slang and idiom, and it'll do that for you.
Okay.
You can tell it to use emojis, and it's not that complicated. It's just a conversation back and forth, and then every time it doesn't have to be perfect the first time. You can say, okay, this looks good. Can you change this part about it? And then it'll give you another output, and then you can keep on going until you get the output you want.
So it sounds like you use it, I think, a little bit opposite than what I hear. Instead of using it as your first draft, you make your own first draft and then use it for editing, kind of thing. Do you find that's a better use case than getting it to kind of give you the first draft and then you edit?
Well, what I was explaining is for a non-native English speaker who has trouble sounding like, a native English speaker.
Yeah.
And so they have, they're writing English. It's grammatically correct English.
Yeah.
But you can tell it's written by somebody who's not from your country.
Yeah.
Right. And so in order for them to make that sound like it was written by a native English speaker, to get rid of
how do you, I'm just curious, how do you use it though? Like, do you use it for writing your first draft sometimes, like just to kind of get some ideas flowing, or do you use it also for more editing for different things?
I don't use
it. Oh, you don't use it.
Like
okay.
for most of my stuff, I don't use it. But when I do use it, it's more to like save time.
Okay.
So like, for example, like I was doing this thing for a client. He's launching a bunch of like single product e-com stores.
Yeah.
And it's like affiliate marketing. So I don't need to like build a solid relationship with the subscriber. And it's like affiliate traffic as well. So like, it's more like a churn and burn kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I didn't need to have like super on point copy. And so what I did was I just fed the sales page to ChatGPT, and then I asked it, "Hey, give me pain points for somebody who might be interested in buying this product." And ChatGPT will give you like pain points, and then you tell it, "Okay, now could you please give me 10 ideas for emails that I could write to sell this product based on your pain points?" And your ideas could be entertaining, curiosity-based, offer-based, educational, and it'll give you like a bunch of different ideas. And then you end up with like 10 ideas. And then you say, okay, now give me a draft for email one, which could be like a promotional email that focuses on the 50% off offer. And it'll give you the draft. And then, okay, you see the draft and say, okay, this is fine. I want you to like not start an email with imagine if or imagine that you could. Okay, and it'll rewrite the draft for you. You can also do something like, I want you to put a hard return between between the subject line and the preview text, or you can say, I want you to format the email in a particular way.
Okay.
And if it's missing a postscript, you can say, okay, now add a postscript with a testimonial from the sales page. And then you tweak it, and it tends to remember the instructions that you give, so that eventually, once you end up with the final email that you use, now the next sales page that you try, or the next email that you write, the output will come back much closer to the one that you want originally. And so then what I do is I take that output, and then it's still not perfect for a direct response email. And then I'll cut out some bits, or I'll edit some bits, and then the email, that's what that email goes into the automation.
It sounds like, as a non-copywriter, it makes the process longer. To be honest, like, it just sounds like, oh, I prompted this, do that. So, I mean, it just, again, I'm not a copywriter, but like, if you practice your skill in copy, would it not be more efficient than using a tool like, Chat GPT? I feel like maybe for idea generation, it's cool, but like for editing, I feel like you're prompting it this, and then prompting it that, and then prompting it this, and then prompting it. Like, what if you just do it yourself? Like old school, just write it out, So this is a two-part question. Number one, did it make your work longer? And then number two, when did AI disappoint you? When did something go wrong with you using AI? Because we all hear about these great stories about, oh, it came out with all this copy that I'm sure like you've fallen flat on your face at least once with all the copy that you're writing with AI that would like kind of disappointed you. So I'm just curious about that.
Yeah. So in this case, the example that I'm describing to you, it made the work faster.
Okay.
Because once you get the initial workflow of it down, and once you've described, like once you figure out, okay, these are the steps that I need, or this is how I need the prompt to look, and this is how I need to, to give it instructions to format the email for me. Like the first one is the one that takes the longest, like the first sales page. Yeah. But then like every sales page after that is just like one click. Right. And so when you're doing emails for 30 stores, just imagine like going through, like reading the sales page for like 30 stores, and then just thinking, usually like a copywriter will usually take a nap to help him come up with ideas. So like that increases the time, right? In this case, I didn't even have to read the sales page. I was just like, hey, read the sales page. What are the pain points? Okay, now you gave me the pain points. I could even condense that and make it even shorter with just like one prompt, which is how you get those 2,000 word prompts, right? Wow. But I was trying to do it in a more like systematic way in order to minimize the error that ChatGPT could potentially create by giving me the wrong output. And so I was doing it in a conversational way, but you can do it in that 2,000 prompt style way, and it'll give you like, you can ask it for 10 emails at once, and it'll do that for you.
Okay.
So I haven't seen it in a situation where it doesn't for me, it never really falls. It's not that it falls flat on its face. It's that it's just not something that I would want to write, or it's not something that I would want to submit to a client. Maybe my prompting is not that good yet. It could be that because I'm not like super like a crazy expert with AI. But for the example that I described, the outputs were like fairly decent with few minor edits. Like they turn into fairly decent direct response emails. And sometimes you'll get an output where is something that you totally would not want to write, but there's a kernel in there that gives you an idea for a piece of copy that you could write. And you can feed it ideas. And I did that one time I was writing an email. It's, to sell flowers. It's like a online flower shop. And so like there's not much direct response you can do there. It's like
Yeah.
what fucking, what the fuck kind of benefits can you write about, or what bullets can you
They
write
smell
about?
good.
Yeah.
Don't be
Right.
stinky.
So exactly. So I had this idea, because the flowers have these kinds of names, right? Like Coral Beach, or like Coral Cliffs or whatever, right? And so I had this idea for this couple. They're going, they're visiting this place that they visited the first time they started dating, and they're on their like whatever anniversary, and then he presents her with these flowers, as a gift, right? And so I put this idea in some kind of prompt into ChatGPT, and it gave me an output back, which is totally unusable. But there was like one line in that output that I took and I turned into an email that I could use,
Oh,
right?
wow.
And so it's useful in that sense as well, because what it does is gets rid of that like staring at the blank page issue.
It sounds like it's almost like you have a group of people, like before you'd call a couple of friends and try to, think something out, talk out loud, share ideas. And then it would give you like, oh yeah, like that kind of moment where now you can, open up ChatGPT and you're having a kind of conversation with them. And then it could just spark something that, okay, I should focus on this type of idea and so forth. So, obviously it sounds like it's a net positive for you. I'm curious, kind of discussing about ChatGPT and long form, short form. You don't focus on a niche, right? You said you work on a whole bunch of different niches, but you did mention that you do more kind of like email, short form copy. Do you think that like somebody starting out in the industry should maybe not necessarily focus on a niche, but focus on one type of style writing? And why did you choose email? It seems like I will say, full disclosure, it seems like email is what everybody's promoting now in terms of copy. It's like, oh, I'm an email copywriter. I'm an email copy. I'm not hearing very many long form. So I feel like I would be a contrarian and be like, I'm going to be the long form copywriter, just to be different. But like, why focus on email, and how easy is it for you to say, if somebody says, hey, I want to hire you, Nabeel, to write me a sales letter? Is that something that you would say yes to, or no, I'm only comfortable with email?
I mean, it is something that I would say yes to.
Okay.
It's not that like if you want me to write a piece of copy, I'll write you a piece of copy. No big deal. And I have written like entire packages before, so it's like not something that's going to be difficult to do. And the reason why I ended up mostly doing email is just that's how like, you get a client and you get another client, and then you get a reputation. And, if most of your clients come from referrals, like that's how they're recommending you, right?
Okay.
So like I'll have a client where, for example, I'm, handling not just their emails, but all of their organic content, right? And maybe that client runs a mastermind, and, the mastermind attendees are talking, and it's like, hey man, I love your emails. Who do you like? Who writes your emails, or who writes your copy? Oh, it's Nabeel. And then they get referred to you and they might need help with an email copywriter. So that's one email copywriter. Then you do another good job for them, and they recommend you to another person. And you end up just having a bunch of like email copywriting clients, and that's what your case studies end up as. And so now, like, you're now the email marketing guy, even though like you never intended to end up with that niche. But the reason why email marketing is being promoted a lot is because it's easy to fulfill. A lot of people don't do a lot with email, even though like if you're in the direct response space, like email is our bread and butter, right? That's where like the money is made. But a lot of like, course creators, coaches, like, you'd be surprised at how little they do with email, even if they're spending like a shitload of money on paid traffic. Like their CRM is like 10,000 contacts that they haven't emailed past the like whatever the fuck follow-up sequence that they have for their webinar funnel, right?
Yeah.
And they might email them like once a month if their sales team's calendar is dry. And so like you just show up and said like, an email a week, and suddenly you're like adding like 30 to 50K of additional revenue because they never used to email their list. And so it's easy to fulfill. A lot of people aren't doing a lot with email. And it's also easy to teach, right? Because and not only that, like if I'm reaching out to you, Maria, and I'm saying, hey, Maria, I'm a long form copywriter. I'll write you a nice sales letter for direct pay net, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, direct pay net. And I'm coming in cold off of the street, right? Like, who the fuck am I? Like, why would you trust me with such a critical piece of copy? That's so like what like and it also, you have sometimes new copywriters will position themselves as launch copywriters. You have to understand how these jobs are hired out, right? You're not gonna go give your launch package to somebody who came in as a cold email or a cold DM, right? You're going to talk to your especially if you're a serious entrepreneur, you're going to talk to your mastermind members, people are in coaching programs with. Hey, I've got a launch coming up. I need some copyright written. Who do you know? Who wrote your copy? And so that's how those jobs are given out. And so it's much harder if you're a new copywriter to get a job as writing a long form sales page. Even though if you do know how to write long form sales pages, pretty much every piece of copy it becomes much easier, because once you have the sales page, you pretty much have every other piece of copy that you could probably write, because it's like just tiny like micro pieces of the sales page.
You're taking snippets of it and making it an email.
Exactly. Okay. Exactly. And so that's why you have a lot of people trying to be email copywriters, or coaches trying to teach email copywriting. It's more like a sort of like an infrastructure issue. And on top of that, it's hard to teach people how to write a long form sales page in a coaching program or in a course.
Well, I mean, the one thing that I can say as a business owner and, working with different people I don't have like direct response copywriting in my company. I see obviously a lot of my clients that use copywriters for different things. But the one thing that, I get pitched a lot, everybody does, I think these days. I do like when people kind of manage the whole thing, because I did have, I should email my list too more often. I'm one of those that you're talking about that like once every like 3 months or maybe less, like really bad. But because we focus on social media, podcasting, content, all that, but it's a bad excuse. I know email is like a very easy channel when you have people on your list. But I do find that a lot of people that I've used and I've tested, they send me like a Google Doc with the emails. You lost me. You just lost me. Like I don't know what to do now. I have to go into like Active Campaign and create things, and it's like, no thanks. I have zero interest. I do feel like there's a value add when people at least learn some of the technology or some of the bigger ESPs and stuff, just so they can be able to say, look, I'll come in, I'll set it up. You're not going to get, you're not going to get banned, because that's another thing that I'm always worried about is like, somebody's going to take my email address and ban me, and then like I'm going to get screwed with my business. That's always a huge like trust factor, right? Like, especially like my company, for example, we've been around for 13, 14 years. You take my email and then you destroy it. That's a big problem. You know what I mean? That is a big, big problem for us. So that always gets me to hesitate, but it always surprised me when, you hire somebody for any type of copy and they just give you a Google Doc. They don't offer to kind of like, let me get this live for you. Let me kind of get it from the 80, 90% to 100% done. So I'm curious, like in your opinion, like how important is learning tech and learning tools, and how would you go about learning the essential things that would make you desirable for a business?
It's more important when you're new and trying to break into the industry. Okay. Like if Dan Kennedy sends you or Google Doc, you're just going to shut the fuck up and find somebody to implement it for you, yeah. Right? But if it's like, if you've never heard of me, like I'm some no-name copywriter, and say, hey, Maria, I noticed that I'm on your email list. I randomly subscribe, and I noticed that you don't send any emails out. let me take care of that for you. I'll write the emails, I'll schedule the emails, I'll even set up your automations, I'll set up your engagement tagging, I'll even do like a warm-up campaign for you so that we warm up your list properly so that nothing's going to spam. And I'll take the entire thing off of your plate. Now it's much more interesting, right? And so that is something that you might want to learn as a copywriter. That's going to make it easier for you to get your foot in the door. So it's like skill stacking, right? Because out of like copywriting is just like one micro skill. Mm-hmm. There's other skills on top of that, right? So if you're a Facebook ads copywriter, just writing the ad copy is one thing, but understanding how to write, a compliant Facebook ad, how to pick creatives, how to
targeting,
exactly, how to set up a funnel that's more likely to convert on Facebook. There's all of those micro skills that go into running ads that convert on Facebook. And so if you have those skills, that makes it much easier for you
for your resume. But what I think you just did, Nabeel, is you just told every copywriter listening here and everybody that could take a few tips, like write down exactly what Nabeel said, polish it up, and that should be your email to get people to want to work with you. You literally said step by step, I'll do this, and I'll do this. That's what business owners want. Like I'm talking about myself, but I work with a ton of business owners, and you see my eyes glaze over when somebody says I'm going to do this, but you're going to have, no. I like DFY, done for you. I don't want to do anything. If I'm hiring somebody, I want you to take the baton and do it all to the end and then come back with the results. I don't want to, as soon as as a business owner, as soon as I get pitched and somebody says, and you're gonna, no, you lost me already. I like those two words. You're gonna, no, I'm not doing anything. I am like, I'm Canadian. We play a lot of hockey here. I'm like a goaltender with my time. Like, no. Don't ask me to do anything else. I'm not doing it. I'm just going to focus on what I do because I know what I do. And you got to know what you do. So that's very interesting. And it is, resume stacking, knowing the more, like for me in merchant accounts, it's like, okay, I work with supplements. I work with adult. I work with this. I have experience in all these different industries. So I'm more well-rounded for whoever comes to me. They can count on me for different things. I think it's the same thing for anything you do. You can't just learn one skill and say, again, unless you're like a Dan Kennedy or somebody that has a name, you got to be able to keep adding more ESPs, more tech, more, prompting for AI, all this stuff and your network. I am curious, we were talking about your mastermind and so forth. Is this catering specifically to English second language people? And what makes your mastermind different? Because again, one thing that became very popular during the pandemic was masterminds. Like people were just like, and then there was people that were joining like 3 or 4 or 5 or 6. Very little value comes out of joining that many, in my opinion. I think strategically, one where you feel tied that you can create like a network effect for yourself is good. But can you tell me a little bit about your mastermind and what makes it different and why, who would join this type of mastermind?
Yeah, that's a good question. So there's so many copywriting coaching programs and masterminds and courses and things like that, right? So it's like every copywriter, as soon as they get a little bit of success, it's like, okay, now I'm going to start coaching other copywriters. Like you barely hit 6 figures a year. Now you're coaching.
I made $10,000. Let me start coaching people. No,
yeah, exactly. Right? So that's a problem. That's one problem, right? And on the other end of the spectrum, you have the actual experts who have their own coaching programs, but they're all there's no differentiator between them. You're in SaaS, right? So you understand feature parity, right? And so when you have a lot of competitors and they all have the same features, the one that stands out is the one that tells the best story, right? And so while Copy Skills is a training program or a coaching program or a membership community for copywriters, the story that we're telling is that it's a training program for copywriters from the global South. And once I position it that way, that makes a lot of decisions for me. So now I can't charge $20,000 for a year, like Alan Sultanic charges for Fast Forward, even though like his is the Rolls Royce of masterminds in copywriting. And eventually, like if you want, like once you graduate from copy skills and you're successful, like you would want to join fast forward, right? I can't do that with copy skills if I'm targeting global South copywriters. And so the pricing has to be in accordance with that positioning. And also whether or not we have live coaching calls has to be in accordance with that positioning, because like we have members from all over the world. And usually with these copywriting programs, the coaching calls are always at a time where it's convenient for the founder or the coaches, which is like usually like EST US time, right?
1 p.m. EST.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the standard.
And then you end up like Pauline Longdon, who's like up at 3:00 in the morning, calling into her Paris Lampropolis coaching call, right? And like, what are you gonna do? It's Paris fucking Lampropolis, right? So you wake up at 3:00 and you do the coaching call, right? And so we don't do that in copy skills. There's like almost no coaching calls. Like everything happens asynchronous, remote and asynchronous. There's no point having it remote unless it's asynchronous.
Yeah.
And so the way we do the coaching is in line with the position, right? And if we do have calls, right, because most of our members are in the Eastern Hemisphere, like the calls are timed in such a way that it's convenient for those people to actually show up to the call at a decent hour. Like they don't have to show up at calls at midnight. Or I'll do 2 calls, like one in the AM and one in the PM, so that because we have global members, like everybody in like Eastern or Western Hemisphere can attend. And so once you have that story, right, figured out, then like the way you set up the mastermind or the business or whatever it is, the positioning makes those decisions for you. Mm-hmm. And so that's what Copy Skills is. It's the only training program for global South copywriters. I mean, we're the only ones that focus on like specific things like, okay, you're a global South copywriter in fucking Timbuktu somewhere, and how do you actually get paid? How do you physically get the client's money into your bank account?
Oh yeah.
It's literally, it's fucking impossible.
That is a big challenge though. I don't want you to discount that. Like I get questions because obviously I get merchant accounts for people, but I get a lot of banking questions and I'm very good with banking and I can help people with like different, like just advice. It's actually not my business. It's just obviously with merchant accounts, it's very tied into banking because we got to put the money somewhere. So it kind of goes one for one. And a huge challenge, especially in third world countries with people working in the States. It's like, great. Let's say you're in East Africa. Great. You got a client that's willing to pay you $3,000 to do that. How are you going to get that $3,000? Like, how are you physically going to be able to get, because the US has a lot of sanctions with different countries in Africa that people don't realize, even if it's not like your standard Iran, Iraq, and all that. There's other countries that could have some issues. And number 2, it could be just difficult for the person. Like credit cards are so widely used, but if you don't have a credit card and you're there, like, or you don't have a Stripe account, or you don't like, how is the logistics of it? So that's a big issue. That it's like, you could be a great copywriter, you can have clients waiting in line, but if you don't know how to actually collect the money, big problem. So that's a great thing for people to kind of realize that joining some of these groups maybe has like a side benefit of like other people that are, because if you're in a group with all Americans and you're in Asia, well, you can't ask this question. They're going to be like, yeah, just get the guy to PayPal you, oh, okay. So you have to be with people in your situation so you can get some good advice. Right. So that's interesting. You mentioned Alan Sultanic, the great Alan Sultanic, who was on my podcast. And I learned like a ton from him. He's, obviously a genius and very, very intelligent in the world of marketing. And Pauline as well was on my podcast. We're going to link the episodes down below, guys. These are, experts in copy and marketing and so forth. So you should listen to those episodes as well as Nabeel's. But it's funny that you mentioned, these 2 specific people, both very successful. Pauline is the Australian copy, but she writes for Americans. And when, I've read some of her copy, I've followed Pauline, and you can't tell she's a woman, a man, or whatever, like you and that's a gift for that's a gift for some people, that they can they can be different genders, they can be different political affiliations, they can be, you know, and that's to me is a testament of, you know, her skill, and like people who are good copywriters, you know, that they can write for right wing, left wing, man, woman, transgender, anything, you know, just like you can just get into their heads, you know, which is pretty cool. But yeah, I mean, so, you know, other than those challenges, like in terms of copy, in your group, like what is it that you're focusing on? Are people just like asking questions and getting answers? Are you actually doing copy reviews and giving people like actually concrete feedback on their copy?
Yeah, so we do a once a month office hours where they can show up and ask anything. I do 2 sessions, one in the morning, one in the afternoon, so everybody can show up.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, if I see that there's like not a lot of attendance, it's just gonna stay at once a month. But if I see people showing up and there's a lot of people asking questions, like I might increase that to, you know, more than once a month. But we have once a month office hours, happens at 2 sessions, AM and PM, so that pretty much everybody can attend. They can come and ask anything they want. But other than that, it's sort of set up like a forum. I use the community platform I use is Circle, and so we have different channels for like cold outreach, copy critiques, ask us anything, guest lectures, courses that we have uploaded, and so like whatever questions they have, they ask and they get an answer back. Or if they need feedback on copy, they just submit their copy, and I'll add notes in the document, or I'll leave a comment, or I'll record a screen share and give them feedback that way. I've been thinking about, I just recently reread Copy Logic, and I might start doing the peer review system to give them feedback on their copy. Do you know what the peer review system is?
I mean, I'm assuming it's just your peers reviewing your copy, vice versa, but you not specifically.
Yeah, so it's like a little bit different than the scientific peer review that most people are familiar with, right? So it's just a way that you can come together quickly, and it doesn't have to be copywriters. It could be anybody in the company, right? It could be even like the janitor. Because what you're trying to find out is, does your headline and lead have emotional appeal, to get like enough emotional appeal that you'll continue to read the rest of the promo. And that's like the main focus. And there's like a few other bits and pieces, but the peer review system does is it removes the necessity for me to give you feedback on your copy. It's more, and it doesn't depend on my expertise. What it is it's an emotional gut reaction on whether or not your headline and lead are interesting enough or emotional, have an appeal, emotional enough to get me to keep reading. And so I don't need to be an expert copywriter to give you that feedback, right?
Yeah.
And so it's rated on a scale of like 1 to 4. Like the book was written by Michael Masterson, who's like, you know, Mark Ford, whatever his name is, but like he's the guy behind Agora, or one of the founders of Agora. And so that system is like a scale of 1 to 4. 1 is like, I would totally not read the promo after this. It'll just go in the garbage. And 4 is like, I'm definitely reading this. I want to see what happens. Right. Okay. And so it doesn't, when you do the feedback that way, it depersonalizes the feedback. So it's not like I'm saying your copy is shit. It's just like a 1 to 4 number. And on top of that, it's coming from several people. And also it's not like coming from the copy chief himself. It could be like the admin person or the receptionist who's telling you like, okay, I probably wouldn't read this. And so it makes it easier for the copywriter to get the feedback and to improve faster. Because also what happens is that everybody who's involved in the peer review has to give suggestions on how to improve the copy. So like you might have a headline that's like a 2 out of 4. And then you get a couple of suggestions that make it a 3 out of 4, right? And the suggestions are coming from everybody, and then you rate the suggestions, and then okay, if the rating is like, you know, passes a certain limit, then you go ahead and you make those changes. And so I'm thinking of introducing that inside Copy Skills so that it takes a lot of the focus off of me as the guy like that they're looking to as their guru or whatever to critique their copy. And I want to make this like more of like a collaborative thing where it's the other copies learning how to give each other feedback. And in turn, they're learning themselves. So that's like a convoluted
I think it's important.
way.
Like it's also important to get like not just people who are like you to read your copy, in the sense of like, give it to somebody like me, for example, that's not a copywriter. And if I'm like, this is boring as hell, I don't want to read this. Well, I mean, maybe I can't give you exactly positioning, but I'm telling you this sucks because I don't want to read it. So fix it. Make me want to read this, So whatever it is, obviously, as a copywriter, that's where you have to say, well, okay, my headline. Obviously, if person A doesn't want to go past like 6 lines of my copy, headline doesn't make any sense. So let's go, So that's very interesting. I'm curious, like for you mentioned earlier at the beginning that you had a couple of things going on, and you mentioned also an email list. And again, the email list is something that everybody's doing lately. I'm hearing a lot about this, but yours has been around for a really, really long time. 7 years is like is ions in terms of time, in terms of running an email list, right? First, I'm curious, why did you start the email list? Second, how do you get people to want to be on your list? And like, is there a specific like CTA that you have constantly for your list, or is it just general, you just want to share your thoughts?
Right. I started the email list because I wanted to create a daily writing habit, and I thought it might be a forcing function. Okay. So I committed to say, okay, I'm going to send a daily email. And I did that for like, I can't remember. I did it without missing a streak for like, I don't know how many years it was. Oh, and then like I took a break because like eventually you get burnt out because unless like you're super hardcore about sending a daily email, eventually you start to phone it in. And that's not good for you, and it's no good for the subscriber as well. Yeah. So then I sort of reduced it to like 3 emails a week for a long time. Or just like 1 or 2 emails a week, just sending an email when I had something to say. But now I'm back up to emailing daily again. For some, I don't know why I decided to pick it. You have more to say. Yeah. And as far as promoting your email list, like if you have a free list, I mean you can go the quantity route where you're just trying to get as many subscribers as possible. The way most people do it right now on social media, at least, like I'm on Twitter mostly, and so what people will do is like they'll auto plug their newsletter under one of their tweets that's performing well, and so it's you just drop the link to the newsletter under your regular content, okay, and you get people to sign up that way. And there's like different ways to grow your newsletter now. Like, so for example, if you're on ConvertKit or Beehive, there's like a lot of recommendation engines to recommend other people's newsletters, and you can grow that way. Okay. So I mean, there's a bunch of different ways to grow your list, but for my list, I've actually taken down all of the opt-in forms. Now the only way to get on the list is if you're a customer or a client or a member of Copy Skills.
So you're making it more exclusive to make it harder, so people really want to be on that list. So your strategy is not just anybody; it's just you want people, let's say, that are buyers that are spending money with you, basically. Yeah, exactly. Okay. Because after a while, what's going to happen is you have like usually what happens is you have a very large list of like freebie seekers, and you try to convert like some percentage of that into customers, which is fine if you run an info product business and you're just trying to get as much volume as possible. But in my case, I run like I run a consulting business mainly, and then a coaching business as a side thing. And so my business is based more on like relationships. So I'm okay having a much smaller list that's filled with like buyers. Okay. And also like you tend to find that when they're on the list for free, they tend to not engage as much the way you like the way you want them to engage. So like I try to track the engagement by like replies and then clicks over opens, right? So when you have a ton of free subscribers on the list, like they don't care. Like they'll read the email, they won't read the email. You ask them to reply, just to get some engagement going, and they won't care. And so what I've done is like recently I sent it through like a super aggressive
like reactivation campaign. I sent them like 4 emails a day for 5 days. And like you find that 70% of the list like literally does not give a fuck. They're getting 4 emails a day and they're so not bothered. They give zero fucks so much that they won't even unsubscribe.
Oh wow. If you sent me 4 emails a day and I was not interested, you're getting that unsubscribe, man.
Exactly.
That is one surefire way to get an unsubscribe.
Exactly. So like just imagine like you have like 70% of your list cares so little that even if you send them 4 emails a day, they won't even bother to unsubscribe. So like you want those people off of your list as fast as possible. So like now they're in like the sunset campaign, and eventually once they get like turned to inactive, like I'm going to delete them.
Yeah.
It's like you don't want those people on your list. Like
let me ask a question, just kind of interject here. Like in your type of business, maybe in my type of business, I'm more of a B2B. You're more of a B2B as well, like for the consulting side. Like I get that. Like same thing with me. I'm like, I wouldn't want to be sending information about merchant accounts and different conversion tactics to like random people that got on my list by mistake. Because who cares, right? They're never going to have a business. Like, what's the difference? And it's the same thing I find, like, if I take it to like my YouTube channel and the podcast and so forth, I have the same strategy as you. At one point, I was like, I have to post this many days to do this, and then you do run out of steam in a sense of like, I don't have anything to say this week. Why am I just going to say something for the sake of saying it? Which is, I took a hiatus from the podcast for a couple of months this summer because I was like, I just need a little bit of a break. I don't have anything particularly that I'm passionate about saying right now. And then I come back to it and I post an episode when I feel like I want to talk to somebody. And then I'm like, look, if people want to listen to them, they want. And then if I don't post every week, I'd rather have good content than crappy content consistently. You know what I mean? But anyway, getting to the point of that, of the list is, for a B2C company, let's say selling supplements or coaching or like low end, like kind of small ticket coaching and stuff like that, BizOp, let's call them BizOp products. Wouldn't it be a good idea to have an inflated list, even if it's not necessarily people with that are buying? Or do you think that still, if people are not buying within a certain amount of time, it's just better to kick them off?
So I mean, it depends, right? Like if you don't care about having, because eventually at some point you're going to stop emailing the unengaged subscribers. Like if you tag your email engagement properly, and if you have like engagement tagging automation set up properly, eventually you're going to exclude those people from your list. But you might not get rid of them completely. You might not delete them, but you're just going to stop emailing them and just email the most engaged segment of your list anyway.
Okay.
Right? So you don't have to delete them. You just have to stop emailing them and only focus on the most engaged segment. Because at some point, those inactive subscribers might reactivate. And so you can even do that. Like you can keep the inactive subscribers on your list. And then from time to time, maybe once a month, maybe once every 3 months, you send them some sort of reactivation email and see how many of those people you can reactivate. And that works as well. So
that's more for like a B2C environment, like, because I'm looking at you, Gap Canada. Like Gap Canada literally emails me like 7 times a day, every day. I'm like, what the hell are they how many freaking jogging pants can I buy from Gap? Like I buy my kids clothes from the Gap because, it's just easy, it's fast or whatever. And I regret every single time I make an order, because then for like literally 6 months, I'm getting 7 emails a day. And I am going to say that I don't delete those and I don't unsubscribe because, there's going to be that one time that I do want that coupon to buy my son's, jogging pants. So I just keep them around, but it is fucking as annoying as hell. And at the same time, like, I've gone through their preferences and said, oh, just email me once a week. They don't give a shit. They still email me 7 times a day. They're like, yeah, I don't care. You didn't unsubscribe. We're going to send you 7 emails. But, kind of wrapping this back to the point is, I hate that I get emailed so much from them. I want to unsubscribe. I change preferences to like once a week or once a month or whatever. They still send me. And then I end up being a buyer anyway. You know what I mean? Even though they annoy me, I end up, that's why I'm saying for a B2C, I think that sometimes there could be a case of like, there's going to be that one time that you're going to email somebody and be, yeah, I'm going to buy this skin cream or I'm going to buy this supplement or whatever. I feel like with a B2B type thing, it's more rare, right? Like it's just not, usually it's more thousands of dollars of spend on these types of lists versus like $50, $100, whatever. So it's interesting that you say you kind of like get them off your list in the sense of like they're not engaged, but then you might want to come back to them 3 months, 6 months down the line to try to get them to buy. I feel just like the first inclination that I would have is I would probably not want to get rid of anybody who's subscribed in the first place unless they just said I'm unsubscribing. If they haven't, you don't know, right? Like life can change and all of a sudden maybe I want to buy a pair of jogging pants every week. You know what I mean? Like who knows, right? But it is interesting to hear that you're being very selective in your email list, because I find just in the marketing game and in closing for you, I'm just curious, like the way of selling things, I feel is transitioning a little bit more. And it's something that, I find even in my business, I feel like I'm giving a lot of content, a lot of education, a lot of stuff. And I'm almost waiting for people to come to me versus being very CTA focused. Do you find it's the same? Do you feel the same? Or like, how are things kind of transitioning in the sales cycle in the last couple of years?
So I've had a bunch of clients that they run sales agencies. And so what we found is that you need to have like a lot of sales enablement assets, especially if you do like phone sales. I don't know how you guys handle your sales, but for if you run like a webinar funnel to book a call, and you do phone sales, you need to have a lot more sales enablement assets, both in your marketing and in your follow-up, and also for your sales team to hand off to prospects, so that like if somebody's not qualified or they need some more indoctrination or education, they have those assets available. So that's what I've seen. Like we have this thing called like a 7-figure blog post, where it's like we have like these really comprehensive, these articles or white papers or whatever you want to call them.
Yeah.
And it basically either describes, everything that the prospect needs to know in order to make a decision to buy, or it's like a complete list of FAQs with like individual answers for each. And, like for one of the clients, I can, directly point to those, like to 2 articles that have generated well over 7 figures. Because all we do is like somebody books a call, and then before they show up to the call, they say, hey, thanks for booking a call. Like before you show up, please read these resources, because it'll give you a much better idea of who we are and how we do business, and what you need to do to succeed. And they show up to the call pre-sold, right? And then if like you have a YouTube channel, right? This client also, like we used to publish like weekly YouTube videos, help them publish YouTube videos every week. And so like you'd have calls show up where they've binge watched like 10 videos on the channel, and then it's just like, I'm ready to get started. Like there's no sales call. It's just like an order taking call, right?
Yeah.
And so that kind of helps. But I also feel like people are, you see more people turning to this because they haven't been able to figure out how to make paid traffic work. That's like the ultimate thing, right? If you know how to make paid traffic work, like why do you want to be a dancing monkey for like the YouTube algorithm or the Instagram algorithm?
Interesting.
It's like if you're like if the platform is gonna like fuck me anyway, at least I know the price up front, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I'm not just going to make content to get 6 views. Thank you very much. Yeah. Let me give you a couple of $1,000 and see if this is actually going to work, right? Yeah, no,
it's like
I get it.
It's like average $50.
That's the opposite of what I hear, though. That's funny because I actually like that now. Like that's why I like doing this podcast. I learned something. Like my key takeaway is actually that, because if you can't make paid traffic work, then your organic content probably is not great.
Yeah. I mean, you want to do them both, right? So with this client that I was just talking to you about, right? The reason why he hired me is because he noticed that whenever he would do organic content consistently, his ROAS would go up because he was running paid traffic as well. Yeah. And so he didn't have the time to post consistently. So we showed up, And all we did, like, it was nothing special. Like, I wasn't like an amazing copywriter or anything like that. All we did was we started posting every single day on all of his social platforms and to his email list. Like, immediately that tripled his ROAS. He went from like, what was he doing? He went from like a 4 to like a 12, and then he doubled his revenue in 30 days. Right. And then I kept working with that client until they went up to like 300K a month. That was probably one of my longest running clients as well. And so all it is, because it's like the organic feeds the paid and the paid feeds the organic as well, right? The paid, if the paid traffic doesn't buy immediately, they get put into your little ecosystem of content, right? And then they just hang out doing their due diligence for like 6 months or whatever, how long they take, until they're eventually ready to buy. And what the organic does is that it gives you that brand recognition that makes it more likely for somebody to engage with your ad when they see your advertisement. Because if I've never seen you before and then suddenly I see an ad for you or your business, I'm less inclined to click than if I've been seeing your YouTube videos pop up in my feed, if I'm seeing your content on Facebook and things like that. So now when I see an ad from Maria, oh, hey, it's Maria. I've seen her content. What's she got going on? Let me click on this ad. That's what tends to happen.
Well, that's interesting because, they say it takes like 7 times. That's the last number I heard, 7 times before somebody feels like, warm and fuzzy to actually, interact or give you their credit card or give you money. So I like that approach. And I think I'm going to take a little bit of this and implement it for next year, because I've always shied away from paid traffic because my offer is not like a consumer product. But I think that, like you said, like, I have so much organic content at this point. It's like put something out there and they're going to balance each other, right? People are going to recognize me for my organic content, then CNN and be more, interested maybe in clicking. I think my approach before was I did paid content before I had any organic content. So I was like, who the hell is Maria? What the fuck am I going to buy from her? So thank you, Nabeel. That was very helpful. My media team is listening, so they're going to take some notes.
Yeah. And you can also, because you publish a lot of content, you can also just put a little bit of paid spend behind your regular content, and then just boost the impressions that way. Like, if your business is not like an immediate sale, if it's more like relationship based, because you're B2B, right? So all you got to do is you just use that paid spend to increase your brand awareness or brand recognition, and get more people, like put yourself in front of more people. So that when they're ready to buy, you're the first person that comes to mind.
Okay. Well, that's good advice for everybody listening, not just me, but I do appreciate that nice piece of consulting right there that we got for free and a nice little nugget. So, I think this conversation has been very, very valuable, guys. If you're listening and, you're not a US, you don't live in the US, you didn't grow up in the US. Just look at Nabeel and his success and everything that he's done, and, email lists and groups and coaching and writing for some huge names in the industry and so forth. Like, it's possible, right? Like, it's just people don't. I think sometimes people minimize themselves when they're not in the US. Like, how am I going to break through? It's just about relationship building, getting into maybe 1 or 2 strategic groups. Like for me, I've joined masterminds in the past, but I did do the 2020, let me join a lot of groups. And I was like, I don't even want to attend any of these calls. It's like too much. And it was like starting to take up a lot of my time. So be strategic. And I like Nabeel's approach. Your approach that you mentioned, Nabeel, is like, making sure that people actually want to be there, right? So if you're listening, make sure you actually want to be somewhere and want to be in this group actually makes sense for you. So anyway, long conclusion is I hope a lot of you got a lot of value, as I did. I didn't think I was going to get specific tips for my business, and I did. So thank you so much, Nabeel, for sharing everything. We're going to drop down some links of how you can get in touch with Nabeel, how you can learn more about his mastermind group, how you can get on his email list, maybe if he lets you, because he might not. And obviously, if you want to work with Nabeel, how you can get in touch with him, because his copy is very, very solid. And again, it transcends any culture or any gender or anything, right? So that's the sign of a good copywriter. So thank you, Nabeel, so much for your time, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. Thank you for the invite.